Look at this crew. I mean, we got, let's hold on. Let's do appropriate introductions. First things first. A lot of people obviously are very familiar with the McCaffrey family. The father's an all-pro receiver and Super Bowl winner and now a college coach. The McCaffrey boys. Oh, Christian, he looks great. We've all seen him with his shirt off. He's handsome. The brothers.
Wait, what?
Sorry? I'm going to keep going. Just relax. But let's introduce, before we get to you, Christian, you get enough accolades. Let's get to the star of the show. We are thrilled today to be joined by the real boss of the McCaffrey family, Lisa McCaffrey, the star athlete in her own right. And we are going to cover all of that, her career at Stanford, obviously being married to a professional athlete, being the mother of 4 top-tier athletes, Division I players, of course, Christian, a great buddy of mine and a former teammate. We are so fortunate today to be joined by both Lisa and Christian McCaffrey here on You Think. Appreciate you guys coming. What's up?
Thanks for having us.
This
is exciting.
Why is Christian acting so weird?
Well, I was waiting. It's you have to specify. Thanks for having us, and I didn't know if my mom's the star of this show, so I want to,
She is the star of the show. You're just here for.
Thanks for having us.
So before we started recording, Lisa, you said I'm a great mom. Remember all the stories. Did you prep Christian for this interview to make sure we capture all the great moments you had as a sports mom and just a mom in general?
I sent a text to him and said, you better be on your A game and you better lie and say what a great mom I was. Yep. Just lie. Come on, Christian. Do me right.
My mom is the best mom in the world. Although she did.
Stop. We're in a fight right now. We're fighting. Sorry.
The other day.
Why are you guys in a fight?
And it was my bad. And oh my gosh, I've apologized 100 times, but why? Tell me. Go ahead.
Tell us.
So I'm about halfway through Ozark. Great show. And
I know where this is going.
We're at dinner, and I don't know who's not seen the show. I feel bad even telling the story because I'm just gonna start by saying, if you have not seen Ozark, just pause the next 20 seconds or skip the next 20 seconds.
No, you don't have to give it. You don't have to give it away. What happened was I gave the ending away. My bad. I messed up. Come on. But who hasn't seen it? Come on.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I saw season 1 and I stopped in season 2, so I haven't seen it.
Are you guys in Charlotte?
Alert.
Is Jaws just coming out to theaters now in Charlotte? Are you guys behind the times? What the heck? You guys, come on, branch out.
Sorry. My summer nights, I apologize. You could probably relate to this. Unlike you, my kids are not all grown up as athletes. We're just trying to build their careers now. And I spend 12 hours a day at ball fields running football practices and baseball practices. And by the time I sit down on my couch at 9:30, I take a shower and I get in bed.
Well, that's good. You're way better than Ed. At least you're showering. So Ed would just pass out.
All right, so let's go back. All seriousness, of course, we're all familiar with, obviously we're all very familiar with Christian's career, not only at Stanford, but his heralded career growing up in Colorado. And now, of course, a former teammate of mine with the Carolina Panthers, all pro, record setting. We all know that. But I want to go back, blah, 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 no. Right? But Lisa, I want to start with you, and I want you to take us back. You had your own very highly acclaimed athletic career. You played soccer at Stanford. Your father was an Olympian. I mean, athletics just kind of run in the McCaffrey family, but my gut is it comes from your side. So take us back to your childhood, of your early experiences playing youth sports. Then we'll transition to your experience as a mother watching Christian and the boys grow up playing.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Wow. I grew up in Key Biscayne, Florida, right outside of Miami, a really small island. It sounds exotic, but it was kind of rustic and whatnot. And, the most important part of my elementary school was PE. We had Mr. Foster, who was the most awesome PE teacher ever. And I wanted to impress Mr. Foster every field day. It was my goal was to win the 50-yard dash. That was if I could win the 50-yard dash, I'd feel like I accomplished something. And, he was one of those quiet types. He never dished out compliments very often, but when he did, it was really sincere. So he was just a really good guy. And he was big on soccer, and there was a huge Latin influence in Miami at the time. So soccer was a really big deal on this little island. not many people, there wasn't a youth sport leagues for basketball or football. If you wanted to play football, you had to go off the island and play. For most of the time, they actually ended up getting a little flag football league started towards the end, which I did play. I was one of the only girls on the team, which is kind of fun. But soccer was a big deal. And I loved it. I loved the team sport because my family had most of like my older sister had played a lot of tennis, and tennis was just sort of ingrained. And oh my gosh. And I remember just playing countless hours of tennis. And to be honest, I hated it. By the end, I started not liking it. I rebelled. I didn't want to play. And I remember my parents kind of like, it was a little bit dysfunctional. They sort of forced me to play. And I'd play in those tournaments in Florida. I remember watching the Serena Williams movie and the last one about her dad. And he was spot on by not letting those girls play in the juniors, because the juniors in Florida was the most dysfunctional thing looking back that I've ever experienced in my life. Like girls were cheating and parents were screaming at the kids. And it was, it was so awful. It ruined that experience for me. So I did not like tennis, but so I ended up playing a lot of adults at the time. I'd play a lot of the adult tournaments, like local adult tournaments. But anyway, once I found soccer, I realized, oh, this is a team sport. This is so much more fun. And I had a little bit of success growing up. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed that sport more than anything. But then fast forward, I actually stopped playing most sports in middle school. I kind of rebelled and didn't like it because that was just sort of ingrained in our family. And I just started studying really hard. I went to a very academic school, middle school, then ended up in high school and realized I need to play in order to get into a college because academics are not the only thing that's going to matter. It's a very, very competitive high school that I went to academically, not athletically. So I ended up lettering in 5 varsity sports. I ran track, tennis. I did do tennis, soccer, volleyball, and I was a cheerleader, which counted, which was probably my favorite thing that I did. I loved it. It was so fun. You can make fun of me all you want, but I loved cheerleading. And we were not the competitive tumblers or anything like that. It was just fun. It was dancing. And anyway, it was really fun. It was a nice break from competitive sports. So I liked it. But anyway, that I excelled in soccer, I guess, enough that I caught the eye of the Stanford coach. And she came to Florida, watched me play, and recruited me, and I got in. And the minute I got in, I visited, and that was the school I wanted to go to more than anything because it was warm and beautiful and amazing. So anyway, I got in and went there, and it was right at the beginning of Title IX sort of kicking in, and everybody emphasizing it. So I actually got the very first soccer scholarship ever offered by Vanderbilt University, but I turned it down and went to Stanford. So and played for 3 years, but then I hurt my back and didn't play my senior year. And I had a lot of excess energy, as Christian could probably attest to. So I took up running, and I've been running ever since. And running was actually good for my back. It sort of like straightened it out a little bit, so to speak, because it was just always a little off. Anyway, I took up running, and I've just never stopped running. So that's my outlet. So that's why I didn't beat my children growing up.
You're like Forrest Gump.
100%.
You're like Forrest
never
Gump.
stopped. But
well, so Christian, obviously you know your mom's story. You know what she's been to, and throughout the rest of this conversation, after you jump, we're going to really dive into just her as a mother and a parent, and watching you and your brothers go through this. But just give our listeners a little look into what your youth childhood was like. 4 boys, parents that were athletes. Your father obviously is a professional football player, winning Super Bowls. Your mother, we just talked. Like, give us a little sense. Was sports just ingrained in what you guys did? Were you pushed to do it, or was it just something you and your brothers just naturally found yourselves taking up?
Yeah, well, first off, I'll brag about my mom's athletic career too, because she didn't talk about how good she was, but she was, a star.
Yeah.
That was back when Mia Hamm and all those girls were playing, and she was right there, with those. I think she had like 54 goals her senior year. So,
humble brag. You call those humble brags.
Sometimes you got to. Sometimes you got to. You got to let them know. But she doesn't. She doesn't.
I like to score because sometimes when I'd score, they'd let me like sit the bench and have a little break for a while, and I was kind of lazy, so. It's like, hey, if I score, maybe they'll take me out for a few minutes.
I find that hard to believe.
Whatever.
I find that hard to believe.
No, but growing up was it was great. I don't know if I ever realized how great my parents were, because it was kind of just the standard. I know they always wanted us to excel academically. That was something that was extremely important to them. All three of my brothers and myself, we never needed someone to push us to enjoy sports. I don't know if that was just, genetic, or it was built in us from a young age, or watching my dad play when we were young. We always wanted to play. I remember just watching my older brother play when he was 8 and I was 6. And in Colorado, tackle football started at 7 years old. And I just remember I wanted to be like him so much. And we would throw my dad's pads on, and we would play in anything that we could ever do, whether it was 2-on-2 basketball, whether it was like knee football. We'd go out in the snow and play, crush the carrier. It was like we were always doing something, and I just wanted to play so bad. And so the moment that I, started to play football at 7 years old, I loved it. But the same was basketball, the same was baseball and track. And growing up, I did all sports. I just wanted to do something. I wanted to play in the NFL, and then when basketball season rolled around, I wanted to play in the NBA. When baseball season ran around, I wanted to play, professional baseball, and ran track and did all of it. I played 3 sports all through my senior year, and that's one thing I was appreciative of my parents, is they always wanted us to whatever we did, they wanted us to do it 100%, and that was. They encouraged playing multiple sports. They didn't, and that I recognize now that there's less of that going on, because, the sport world, the youth sport world now is so demanding on all year round for baseball and basketball and all these different sports. Well, I grew up in a great time where, my parents encouraged me to do multiple sports. So as soon as football season ended, we'd take maybe like 5 days off, and we'd go right into basketball season, and the same would go into track season. So, but whatever I was doing with my brothers. And I was just so fortunate to have 2 extremely committed parents to, giving us every opportunity we could to live out our dreams. And especially my mom, right? My dad, and you know how this is, Greg, but my dad played. I think my dad retired when I was 7 years old, or Max was 9. And so for all those years, my mom did a lot of the work when it came to parenting, obviously. And that takes a lot. And just to see how she selflessly did that, how she supported him, and looking back, knowing how challenging that was, it's something that's remarkable. And like you said, she really is the star of the family.
Wow.
Well, we appreciate you popping in. I know you got a few things that you're running to, but when you heard, so just for the record, this interview was with Lisa. And then Christian found out that I was interviewing his mom, and he got super jealous, and he got super bent out of shape. So he's like, "Hey, can I come on?"
Like begging.
So we rewrote the rundown to just like give him a chance to talk and make sure he got his fill. So we're gonna allow Christian now. He got his fix. We love you. You're amazing.
Greatest thing ever. You're so.
Why you didn't? I didn't give you enough love in the intro, or
the looking part, the one with the shirt off. Can you do that one more time?
I don't know if you guys have seen Christian. He was in a magazine. It's a small publication. It's called GQ. Is that what they call it?
You don't have to talk about that one. I just mean in general, right? Like at the pool or something.
No.
Let's talk about that GQ spread.
You said we have to hang out. Hold on.
I've stood in many hot tubs with Christian McCaffrey with our shirts off. I'm just going to give a quick public service announcement. You don't want to, in November, when the season's getting long and you're a little bit of an older player and you're not quite in the best shape because, you got like a dad bod. You don't want to stand in the hot tub next to Christian McCaffrey just wearing tub shorts. If anyone out there is considering it, don't do it.
But how good were our Adele songs, though?
Can you give everyone a little bit of a taste?
No.
Is that's special? Yeah, it's special. Yeah, it's special. We got to keep that in the locker room. But I would give, when people are like, "What do you miss?" I miss standing in the hot tub with you, with our shirts off, singing Adele before a game. And I'm not afraid to admit it. So all seriousness, buddy, you're the best. We love you. I appreciate you popping on and letting us have some time with your mom here. Now we're going to get all the secrets out.
Sorry about Ozark.
Ooh.
It's all right.
All right, buddy. We love you. Thanks
All
for
right.
popping in. Thanks for saying what's up.
Bye, Mom.
Bye, son.
All right, now that Christian's gone, we can really now dive into to all the good stuff. So I just want to transition to a little bit. A lot of what we discuss here is we want to hear from the parents. We want to hear from the coaches. We want to hear about what it's like not only raising 4 boys and NFL superstars. Like that obviously is unique to your story, but just the parenting component of navigating youth sports in today's culture is very different than the culture I grew up in or the culture you grew up in. So one of the biggest things we talk a lot about, and I've talked a lot about, is parenting each kid differently.
Yeah.
Right. So you have 4 boys. Again, they all go on to play college football, go on to the NFL, go on to have, but I would imagine if it's anything like, I was growing up with 2 brothers and now raising 3 kids, everyone had very different needs. So as you're kind of navigating this sports world and, you have Max, your oldest, and Christian and Dylan and Luke, even though they're on a similar path, I would imagine along the way, there's kind of different paths that they take. So what does parenting different children look like? And how do we make sure we don't just take the same approach that our oldest kid took and say, all right, all 3 boys, they're all going to do the same thing their older brother did? Like, how do we avoid that?
Yeah. Well, one thing I learned that when each kid came out, they came out with their own personality, their own traits. Each one thrived by a different coaching style. I can attest to that because Max, my oldest, incredible athlete, faster than Christian, to be honest. I think Christian would admit it too. He was the oldest child, very conscientious, very sensitive, completely different than Christian, completely different than Luke too. Luke's the youngest, and obviously very different than Dylan too, the third one. They all came out with a completely different personality. And Ed in particular, once he started coaching them in Little League, had to learn to navigate all that. And he would walk on eggshells. So there were some of the kids you could say, Ed could, and I a little bit, even though I never played football, but you can say directly to them like, hey, don't do that, do this, or do this, don't do that. And they're fine. But some others are a little more sensitive. So you're almost walking on eggshells with that. And you're trying to like figure out the best way to coach them in a positive, healthy way. And one thing that Ed did in particular, which I thought was great, well, first off, he never coached Christian. Christian was on a really, really good, this is all pooling mostly from football, their football experience, because that's the only thing that Ed really coached. And he coached most of them in Little League, all of them actually except Christian. He coached Max, but what Max was really sensitive, very conscientious. So he would take another coach and have that guy, he would tell him things, and then he would tell Max, and they'd play off each other. And then Ed would help coach that guy's son to make him better and whatnot. So he learned to do that. So Ed was never, and Max would hear criticism as opposed to like, hey, I'm trying to make you better. He would immediately think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. And that was something Ed had to learn. He had to learn to navigate because he was way more sensitive. Dylan, same thing. He was a little more sensitive. So, and ironically, he's coaching him now in college, which is a whole nother bag of worms. So
we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
But this is just Little League he was trying to deal with. Whereas like Christian would come off the field and Ed could say, hey, what were you thinking here? Maybe try this, and could be really direct with him. And he would just take it and he'd thrive on it. He would love it. He'd love the criticism. He'd love hearing it. Whereas the others were a lot more sensitive. And that's just the nature of their personalities. Max just thrived listening to somebody else tell him what to do rather than his own dad, because I think he felt like he was letting his dad down, or his dad was criticizing him, and he didn't like that. And there was a time I remember Max was a really good basketball player, and in Little League he was playing for a school team, and he was starting to like freak out if he'd miss a shot, and we're like, whoa, he'd get so upset, so competitive. So we had to like sit him down, and I remember the coach was so upset about it. We had to literally say, look, you can't play if you can't compose yourself. You're going to miss. It's a game of misses. It happens. You're going to, you almost had to, we didn't know, to be honest, we didn't know the right thing to do at the time. It was our first kid. So we made all our mistakes with poor Max, who's actually a great guy. He's a really cool kid. He's a cool person now. But I mean, he's definitely sensitive. And oh my gosh, he's now coaching with Ed, which is, I swear we need a reality show. It's up in Greeley, Colorado, which is pretty funny. So, but
yeah. So Max is coaching with Ed.
Yes.
Obviously your husband is the head coach in Northern Colorado.
Yes.
Max is coaching with him, your oldest. And then Dylan, your third, he's playing for them at Northern Colorado. So they're all
Yeah.
back
Oh,
together again.
you
So
don't even know.
that's
It's so
I can only
good.
imagine. Well, we're gonna get into that here in a second, but I want to stay on this point because I think it's a really good point. I go through that a lot
Yeah. What are your
coaching coaching my kids. They have my oldest. I can be very direct with him, and sometimes I'm too direct, and sometimes I come across as. But he, for the most part, 90% of the time, he can take it.
Yeah.
It's water off a duck's back. He's a little more competitive. My twins, my 9-year-old boy and girl, if I'm too hard on them, they get a lot. They'll take a back seat, and the rest of the practice would almost be. So I almost have to be on eggshells. So that method of kind of having like a secondary person to pass the message, for some reason, kids are a lot more willing to hear feedback, constructive criticism, corrections, accountability from someone other than their parent when they're at a coaching. And I just think it's because they're used to us being on them at home, and then they go to practice and it's like a new voice. But that's a really good lesson I think a lot of people can take from this, that like sometimes knowing your kid, you can get the message across, but sometimes it's just in a different manner.
Right. And we had to learn that through mistakes, and, feelings were hurt along the way, but you eventually navigate it, and you figure it out, and it made them better eventually, by doing it that way. So, and it's so funny because Max sort of turned around later on once he started playing the NFL. He was playing receiver, and I think somewhere along the way he all of a sudden realized, wow, wait a minute. My dad's an all-pro receiver that's willing to give me time and teach me how to get open on routes. It was almost like a little epiphany one off season. And we're like, yeah, where have you been? Like, he's been sitting here the whole time wanting to help you. So yeah, that was kind of a neat little breakthrough. And, but yeah, he had to learn big time. And we'd always have somebody else sort of tell him what to do, which was good. So,
isn't it? The kids don't think their parents know anything.
They don't. They still don't. They still don't. It's funny.
They still don't. Yeah. You have a quote that I've read, and I've actually heard you say this. I've actually heard you firsthand say this, and you said you're only as happy as your least miserable child. And I think, again, I see it firsthand in our house, and sometimes you're sitting at the kitchen table, right? And one kid had a really good week, whether it was in school or whether it was a great tournament, they were the MVP, whatever it was, and you almost feel like you want to give that kid love and praise, and then you're like, all right, I don't want to go too overboard because my other two are sitting in there and they didn't have quite the same weekend. So what was your approach towards supporting each kid individually, but making sure one kid was never perceived as being higher on the food chain or more successful, less successful? Like, how did you manage that as the mom? Like, I think back to my mom managing 3 boys, and to this day, she is very, very careful that all 3 boys
feel valued,
in the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
She's what was your approach to that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Every week was an adventure, and just like you said, one kid would thrive one week, and another kid would have a horrible weekend or week or whatever. You're constantly trying to balance it out, always trying to balance it out. But at the same time, you get to a point where okay, if someone's going to do well one week, you should praise them. And that's actually a good lesson for another kid who, didn't do so well. It's okay to be competitive. It's okay to want to do your best and try to do your best, but it's okay to fail too, or not do as well as your brother. And, maybe if you look and see what he did to achieve whatever he did, you could try to emulate that a little bit. So it's definitely very difficult, but as a mom, you do want all of them to feel valued. And a lot of it though, once we'd get home, we'd sort of shut it down a little bit. We try to just not talk about sports as much because, my gosh, we were, what it's like. I knew you were in Atlanta for 2 weeks with playing baseball, or it would seem like 2 weeks, I'm sure. But yeah, we were constantly on the road. We're always in the car. We're always, talking about the upcoming game or what happened in the game. And, at some point you just got to kind of shut it down and relax and play, let them play video games, let them just play. So, it's always just you're always walking that fine tightrope, trying to make everyone feel valued and appreciated, which, I don't know. I'm sure we screwed up along the way, but we tried. I tried my best. That's all I can say. I don't have any magic pill to say, this is how I did it. This is what I did. But I did try to make everyone feel valued, and even if someone didn't do as well as the other one. So it was a struggle. It still is a struggle. So,
Did you ever compare the boys versus each other?
No.
Did you ever say Christian, look what I try not to do that with, more so with my boys.
Right.
But obviously just comparing because they do a lot of the same things. I try my best to never be like, you see your brother, he did that so good. Why don't you do that?
No.
Did you find yourself like conscious to try to stay away and not do the whole compare the
Yeah,
brother
I
thing?
did not do that at all. At all.
Yeah.
That I think is kind of dysfunctional. Like that would be
Yeah.
tough to hear. So no, you kind of
Yeah.
just look at each one and, you know, they're within their own parameters and they're doing their own thing. One good thing that with us, like particularly football, they all played a different position, except the younger two. But that was kind of nice. So, I mean, I look back at some of the high school videos and there's some cool plays we have where Max is blocking, making a block that would spring Christian for a touchdown. Like that was like, oh my gosh, I felt the most pride whenever I'd see something like that. That was really neat. But no, I never head to head compared them at all. I thought, no way. I mean, they do enough of that themselves. They compete with each other all the time. They're getting plenty of that. They're getting plenty of competition. So, I tried not to do that at all. So,
sometimes the mom's like the referee.
Yeah, exactly.
The mom's role is like, they get enough of that.
No, I know.
And you mentioned Ed. You mentioned Ed was really involved. Your husband Ed coached them. Obviously, everyone watching, assumingly knows Ed. Obviously, had a long career, Super Bowl champion, primarily with the Broncos, which is why obviously you guys grew up in Colorado and still live there today. When Ed was coaching them, you know, you mentioned some of his methods of trying to figure out the best ways to get through to each of the boys. Did Ed bring the practices or the games at a young age? Did he bring them home? Like, did he bring that home as far as like sitting around? You said you tried to shut it down, but like, what was his personality? Like, I've been around Ed. He's seems like a pretty mellow and a pretty low-key guy. Is that how he coached? Was that his model of coaching the boys?
Yeah, Ed's what's the saying? Speak softly and carry a big stick. He's all their friends are to this day are intimidated by Coach Ed. It's the funniest thing. They're like, Mr. Ed. They're all so intimidated. And he's a man of few words, but when he speaks, the kids like listen. They have like a weird respect for him, which is it's kind of nice. I don't see it. I don't get it, but they're like, they to this day, they talk about it. They're like, yeah, they were all scared of Ed. And I don't know why, maybe because he's quiet. I think that's why, because he's kind of quiet, but no, he would, well, sometimes he'd come home and I was always at a different practice. So I would ask, hey, how did it go? How did Dylan do? Or how did this, whatever. So he would tell me about it. But there are times even to this day where he'll go over plays. It's more, he's going over plays. He's going over things that they can, you know, do, not so much like criticizing, but like more trying to teach them. Then he'll do that in the house a little bit. But at some point I do have to say, you need to shut up and let's move on. Let's watch TV or let's, you know, do something else. Cause it does get overwhelming with all four playing, with him coaching now and him coaching back then. Yeah, it would sometimes, he would bring it home a little bit, but not excessively. But there were some times I did have to say, look, you need to calm the fuck down just a smidge. Yeah. It's a little bit.
I need to, that's something that I struggle with. Like I'll go coach the teams and then I'll come home at night and I'm rethinking the whole practice or the game or what ways we can get better. And I'll call the kids and be like, hey, at next week's practice or today's practice, you didn't do this good. And eventually Kara, my wife, she's like, enough. We've been doing this since 9 this morning.
Good.
You guys have been at the fields for 8 hours. Like, can we stop? I'm like, I know, but if I don't get this out of my head now, tomorrow's, I don't know. So
that's a good balance. I like that she does that. That's good that Kara does that. Cause I had to do that too sometimes. And you're just like, whoa, enough already. So
it becomes obsessive.
Yeah.
It becomes obsessive. Like it's all you think about and you feel this like crazy responsibility, not only to your own kids, but to the other kids. And it's very hard to shut that down. So I was just curious what Ed's approach was.
Yeah, he
coaching them.
He definitely does
as a young guy.
Yeah. We recently went out to Charlotte for a week, and Dylan came out. And at one point, I looked at Dylan. He gave me those eyes, like, can we please not go over game plans right now? I don't really want to watch the Houston Baptist defense. Can we just go fishing? So I'm like, okay, enough. So I know it's sometimes it gets a little much, but that's how Ed thinks, just like you. He's like, well, wait, but if we figure this out now, we don't have to worry about it in practice. And so I know.
But prepare.
Yeah, it's definitely
I get it.
A little obsessive compulsive.
I share that with Ed. I probably say a few more words than him, but we do share that common thread. Another thing that we talk about a lot on this show about is the role of the parents in the confines of the team, right? And so much, whether it's conflict, the experience of the child on their youth sports team is so predicated on the experience of the entire family. How involved are the family, the parents? How do the parents get along? How do the parents interact with the coach, vice versa? What were your experiences? Like, what was your approach as a mom? Were you like hyper involved in all aspects of the team? Were you like team mom? Were you kind of the mom who sat out, in the stands, kind of kept to herself? Like, what was your approach as the boys were playing on all these different teams scattered around town? Like, how involved were you on a day-to-day basis into the experience of the boys on their teams?
That's a good question, because I do think they feed off that. I really do, looking back. I didn't at the time, but to be honest, I was never the team mom. I was not organizing the team parties. I was not doing any of that. Partly I had 4 and I didn't have time. But even when it got down, I was only dealing with 2. I was not that person at all. I figured they got enough. That's their time to get away from their parents and to, kind of blaze their own trail. That I didn't feel like they wanted their parents. I was always trying to get them to practice on time and to the right gym or the right field. That was sort of my job. After if they had an issue or they, wanted to talk about it, of course I would talk about it. But a lot of times I remember dropping them off and then like going for a run during practice, trying to do something for myself, because it gets really tedious and it's a lot of practice. But try to show up to as many games as I could. And but I enjoyed the games. I'll be honest, I actually did enjoy it. It was fun. They were fun, especially youth. They were on some really good, high power, strong teams, and they were fun. And I got, I would cheer and stuff. I mean, I don't think I was ever super inappropriate, except the one time I yelled at a ref in a basketball game. But that was just a one-time deal.
Tell us what happened. Tell us what happened. Tell us. Come on, this is a safe space.
Yeah,
this is a safe space.
Well, once again, oh goodness. Just Dylan was playing basketball. So basketball here in Colorado in high school it's absurd. Like, well, first of all, so you play on the league teams where you travel. This is basketball in particular. And Dylan was pretty tall and he was pretty tough. So we'd play out of state and it was like almost like a bloodbath, and it was really physical, and he would thrive in that. I mean, he loved it. That's, and he did really well. Oh my gosh, he had to go up against like some guys that ended up playing the NBA and did really well against him at the time. And and they, they're like, keep a hand on him. They're like giving him all those. Then we'd fast forward and come back to the high school level, and you'd play. And if you literally put a hand on a back, like while you're they blow a whistle and call foul. So Dylan probably had more fouls than any of my kids, fouled out of more games. And there was one that I just felt like the referee was targeting him. And well, it was probably that when he got out there, the whole student section was yelling Derrick Henry right after Christian lost the Heisman. So I might have been a little bit on edge at the time. But anyway, which is, thanks. So, but in basketball gyms, you hear everything.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's you don't even know.
You ever?
Oh, it's
the best.
Is it though? Is it?
I loved it. Hearing you describe like that competitive environment and the crowd yelling, like I'm sure my mother hated it.
Yeah, as a mom,
I loved away games.
I loved
away games. I wish I was there.
I wish you were there, Greg. I wish you were there.
I still love it.
Because you can't say anything.
Did you just go? You
can't do anything as a parent. You can't. You have to shut your mouth. Otherwise, you look like an ass. If I go start yelling in the student section.
I've looked like an ass.
Yeah,
you can't.
I wanted
to
look. I couldn't do it. You couldn't, and all. So every time he touched the ball, they would chant Derrick Henry. Then the referee gets on him, and I promise you, those weren't. I look to this day, they weren't fouls. So anyway, I yelled at the ref. That's all. That's all. I didn't get kicked out or anything, but
nothing.
That was it.
But then I was hoping this was going to be a better.
I might have yelled pretty bad.
Well,
then at the end, the referee, I said something to him as he was walking out, and he said something back, and then Ed, Christian, and Max like pulled him aside and like they got mad. It was the worst. It was just embarrassing. It was bad. I just whatever.
I love it.
I try so hard.
Sorry, we've all had our moments.
Okay, thank you. Feeling better.
You said, trust me, I've had way worse moments than that. But you mentioned something there, which was actually a direction we were going to go. And you mentioned that you feel like they were targeting him. Growing up in Colorado, of course, everyone knew Ed, everyone knew your family, the last name. Now the boys are starting to have a lot of success, starting with Max. And then, here comes Christian. He's the next brother. Then there comes Dylan. He's the next of the McCaffrey brothers. Then, of course, Luke. He's the fourth. So, you start building up that, that reputation, and the boys do have a target on their back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was that like for you? Like, I always think back with my mom, like she would sit in the stands.
Yeah, you had 3 boys.
My dad's coaching, and me and my older brother are on the field together, and we were everybody's target in town. Everyone wanted to beat my dad. They didn't like him. They thought he was a bully. They thought he was too intense. And then here comes his 2 boys that are both Division I players. Now they're kind of teaming up. So people showed up at ball fields and games to beat the Olsen boys in our small little hometown, right? So like, I would imagine the same thing's happening with you. Like, I'm tired of losing to the McCaffrey boys. So like, how did you handle seeing your boys, as you said, taunted by the crowd?
Oh, Greg, you don't even know. Greg, you don't even know. How long do we got? Yeah, there.
We have as long as you want.
Oh gosh, yeah. There's. Can we just do a therapy session here? Yeah. No, we've had some. Okay, keep in mind there were some amazing moments throughout all the whole experience, especially high school. But there were some where I was literally crying on the floor in my closet. It was just because of what you're exactly saying, the target, the animosity people had. So Max went to a different high school before Valor, where they went. And that at that high school, they were pressuring him to only play basketball. The basketball coach was really just wanting to play basketball. And we felt like he was going to penalize him if he did both. They had a new football coach who we didn't know very much about at the time. And we're like, I don't know, this is sort of taking a chance. We ended up 2 weeks before school started transferring him to Valor Christian High School, brand new school. It was 3A. They had a losing season the year before. So keep in mind, this was not for football that we transferred. We paid full tuition for him to go there. But we just wanted to go so he could play multiple sports and not get penalized. We thought that was really important. And they welcomed him with open arms. They said, yes, you can. It was a smaller school that was building. And I felt like they were doing everything right. Met the football coaches, fell in love with them. Great guys. The basketball coach was great at the time. So anyway, it was, that was the main reason we left. But it seemed like everyone was up in arms because Valor started doing well after that. Not just trust. There was a good flux of kids that were starting to matriculate there, and so anyway, they started doing better. The next year, they won. They won 3A. Then they got moved up to 4A, and then Christian came to the school. Max was there, and some other phenomenal players. A lot of other players that played, high level. Anyway, they ended up winning 4A 3 years in a row, and then 5A 2 years. They moved up to 5A and won that win there. Well, the whole town, anybody that was involved in sports at the time, hated Valor, accused them of recruiting. And one of the coaches went on Channel 7 and said that Ed McCaffrey was the biggest recruiter. Recruiting's illegal in high school, by the way. So just so you know, went on Channel 7 right before Thanksgiving that year and said that he was the biggest recruiter and all of the thing, and accusing Ed. Okay, just so you know, Ed had nothing to do with the school at the time. We paid full tuition. Our kids went there. He didn't have it, and purposely didn't have anything to do with it. But they're saying that Ed was the biggest recruiter. It was absolutely insane. So that was one thing. And then one time Christian was playing and scored a touchdown in the end zone. And another high school that was nearby, the head coach was in the end zone in his Letterman jacket, started screaming at Christian, going, you saying bad words and saying him that you're illegal. This is illegal. You shouldn't be here, screaming at him during the game. Well, his team wasn't even playing. So dysfunctional. This puffed up guy with his own Letterman jacket. It's mind boggling. Then
I laugh because what you're describing, I lived my whole life. I get it.
Christian's freshman year, they're in the state championship at Broncos Stadium. And he's playing, and he was a freshman, keep in mind. So he has a really nice run down the sideline. It gets pushed out of bounds into the other team's area. And one of the coaches looks down at him on the ground and goes, I'm going to say a bad word, but whatever. He goes, you're a pussy just like your dad. And Christian, the bestest, looks up at him and goes, I'm 14 years old, and runs off the field. That's my favorite thing that's ever happened. I was like, that made me so happy. I loved it. So anyway, those were just a few of the highlights.
Okay, so and again, it's bananas.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people right now that are going to be listening to this, and they're going to be shaking their heads like, I get it. I see it happening in our hometown. But what was when you'd get the boys home, and you and Ed would sit down and you'd say, all right, what happened today? People are coming. How did you communicate this was going to be their reality? There was no protecting them. There was no putting them in a bubble. They all knew who the family was. They all knew the brothers. They knew you weren't escaping that. What was the conversations at home to help prepare them for that?
I get nervous. I was always hyped up. I was always nervous at the time, but I remember trying so hard to find some peace within me to portray to the kids, just be calm, just do what you do, just play your game. But inside I had oh my gosh, I had like butterflies. I just felt horrible. I was like sick all the time. Like I was just nervous all the time for them because you want to protect them, just like you said. And you know, you're throwing them out to the wolves and you can't, you know, and I get sports are hard enough, you know, just to compete against the other team, let alone you have all this animosity, all this hate. I will say the one good thing that was awesome is I felt like everybody hated Valor. Everyone hated our high school, hated us and everything. But as a community within our own little community, we all had our backs. Like that time that they went to that school, it was small enough. Still, those moms, and we still talk about it to this day. It was actually, we had such a nice, tight knit group and nice bond that made it better. I remember I would feel better sitting in the stands with those parents because we were all in the same boat. Like everyone hated us. So that was one good thing. But no, I'll be honest, it was not the easiest time in that sense. But looking back, it was amazing because they did well. Like it was fun. That was a really fun time, especially now that, you know, the Panthers haven't done so great the last couple of years. It's hard to lose. It's not fun to lose. It's, you know, good life lessons, but man, so looking back at those, I don't even think I appreciated it enough at the time because they had some really good teams and they were fun to be a part of and, you know, fun to contribute to. So, but yeah. I let some of that outside stuff spoil a little bit of the fun, but whatever. It is what it is. Looking back now, it's kind of funny. You have
I
to
think
laugh.
we all do.
I wish I was more like you, Greg. I wish I was more like you and I could like fight back.
No.
So I was like, what would you do if one of your sons, let's say Tate's out there in a basketball game, because the basketball's the worst because people scream at football, but you don't hear it because they're on the other side of the stadium. So you don't hear most of it unless the coach is sitting right next to you. Anyway, that's a whole nother. Anyway.
No, I've told this story on here before. Tate was pitching in a tournament last fall, like a big tournament. It was the final game and he's pitching and it was neck and neck and going back and forth. And the other parents, there was a team from California and they were getting kind of rowdy and they were starting to kind of rag him. And they were saying that he was out of pitches. So I walked to the backstop and I was like, we'll manage our kid. You guys don't worry about our kids. When it's time for him to come out, we'll take him out. So I was kind of like passive aggressive, being a jerk, trying to like set the tone that you're not going to talk to our kids. You're not going to talk to you cheer on your kids. We'll coach ours. So the next batter, they say, yes, he can start this next batter. And the kid hits a home run. So it's his last batter he faces. We have to take him out of the game because of his pitch count rules. And he's like crushed. He just pitched 5 1/3 innings. And the kid hit a home run to take the lead 4-3 after a battle all game. And as he's walking off the field, their parents in the stands start like, yeah, good. You should have taken him out. You know, it should have been his last pitch. Whatever. So they start taunting him. So I walk over there. And again, you talk about having a moment that you're probably not proud of, but you watch your kid being taunted by adults.
Totally, yes.
Listen, if the other kids on the team want to taunt him, and my kid came up to me and said, hey, the kid at second base told me I'm an asshole, I'd be like, fight back.
Yeah.
Like, not literally fight back, but like, go compete. Yeah. Like, if you don't want to be called a pussy on the sideline, go fight back. Go, you know what I mean? Like, go. But when it's the adults is where I draw the line. Totally. So I walked over to the fence and I walked back there and I said, hey, listen, guys, you guys are picking the wrong fight here, the wrong kid. You want to cheer for your kid? You want to stomp the bleachers? You can scream as loud as you want. But you are not going to taunt my kid walking off. He's 10 years old and walking off the mound after he just went toe to toe with you guys. And like, I felt like I had to do it just to set, and now we weren't going to like fight.
Right.
And I did it relatively quietly. I didn't scream it across the field, but like sometimes you do need to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm only willing to take so much.
Right.
And you need to nip it in the bud. And the rest of the game, for the remaining inning, they were fine. And after the game, we all went our separate ways and it wasn't an issue. But it's not easy to watch your kid be a target. And that's something that I struggle with living here in Charlotte. Yeah. Every single time my kids show up to a game, people know who they are.
Right.
And they want to see, are they good? Are they bad? How does he act when he strikes out? And I try to communicate with that with my kids. I said, listen, I know you guys didn't sign up for this, but this is the reality. So you're either going to embrace it and you're going to accept it, or you're going to let it ruin your experience. So yeah, when you strike out, everybody in this ballpark is watching how you respond. They're not, that's just the reality of it. Yeah. And you better act the right way. Come back in, put your bat down, go cheer your teammates, and we'll go on to the next inning. Like, whether you like it or not, when you have a target on your back because people know who you are, it's hard, it's stressful, the parents feel it, but the kids, they have no choice. The choice is you either don't play or you let it crush you, and that's it.
Right.
And you can't let either happen.
Right. Right. No, that's a good way to do it. That was good. You talked it out with them. So yeah, it's hard. You're like living in when you keep thinking,
we tried.
Yeah, no, that's way healthier. That's probably a lot healthier than not that we didn't do anything about it, but we didn't know what to do.
No.
Like we were like in shock that it was happening. That, like you said, I was in shock that other parents and other coaches were treating kids like that. Like I couldn't believe it. That's what I couldn't believe more than anything. I was like, wow, I can't believe this happened. But, and hey, I think it made them stronger in a way, I guess, and it made us, what else it did? It made us bond, made our little family unit bond and know we have each other's back no matter what, which was good. So, we'd come home and be like, can you believe they did that? Don't ever be that person. That's so dysfunctional. That's so off.
Yeah. And teaching your kids who their real friends are and their family and their teammates and their little, as you mentioned, your tight community there at Valor. Mm-hmm. Like those are the lessons. Like we don't need the outside people.
Right.
Their opinions on us mean nothing. And I think that lesson is super important today where everyone's looking for affirmation from people who don't matter.
Right.
Like get affirmation from your parents, your family, your close friends, your teammates. Like those are the people who matter. So the other, you know what I mean? But until you go through it, the best part of just hearing you talk about it that sticks with me is like you made your kids be their own advocates. Like mommy's not coming to the rescue. Like even when I went over and said that to those parents, my kid had no idea.
Oh, he didn't. I was going to ask you.
I don't even know if he knows.
Well, now he does.
I am not going to fight my kids' battles for them.
Right.
And sometimes I want to, and I'll do things behind the scenes with adults. Like kids are kids.
Right.
He's got to fight his own battles. Right. He has an issue on the playground at school. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not calling the other kid's parent and like solving your disputes. But I think teaching kids to be their own advocates is super helpful. It's healthy. You got to go out and live the real world and fight. So hearing the way you guys approached it and just letting the kids deal with the reality of what they were facing growing up in your community, I think is, a big testament to why they've all been so successful and dealt with their own ups and downs and dealt with their own adversities. That's all of us. That's reality. Yeah. That's life.
That's
right?
life. Yeah. Sports is like the ultimate microcosm for life. It really is. Like one game is like, there's so many ups and downs in one game. It's just like, it's like life. So, and it's how you deal with it. That's important. How you, come out, after having a bad play, how do you deal with it? So you're going to dust off and keep going, or are you going to cry and pout and not go back out there? So yeah. We tried.
Hey, listen, you got better answers than I do because I'm just starting this race. You guys are at least further down the road.
Good luck.
One thing I do want to, that's all you can do is wish everyone luck. I do want to go back though to Ed. He took the job at Northern Colorado. Is this his third season, his second season?
Okay. With COVID, we don't even know what season it is. He's had one legit season last year, but he was coach the year before. So I think 2.5 maybe now at this point, almost 3, but one season on the field he's actually coached.
And as you mentioned, Max, your oldest, who played at Duke, then played in the NFL for a while as a receiver, he's on his staff. And then Dylan, who was at Michigan, he transfers, he goes now and plays with Ed. Your youngest, Luke, is at Rice, is at Rice, still in college. Talk to me about what that dynamic is like. So Ed is coaching with his son, and they're both coaching son/brother.
Correct. Oh wow. I think we do need a reality show. We do. I would watch insane.
I would watch it.
The stuff we've gone through is last year is crazy. So yes, Ed is the head coach, Max is the offensive coordinator, and Dylan is the quarterback. So you do the math. All I can say is I thank God every day for the other coaches on the staff. So once again, they have like a really cool quarterback coach who's awesome. A guy named JJ. So Ed has something he wants to, tell Dylan, hey, you got to move your shoulder or whatever, this and that. He'll go through JJ to tell Dylan. That's one thing that's helped. Dylan is better though now that he's older and is way more mature. He can handle a little more like direct criticism. I hate saying criticism, but it's instruction. Ed's not a yeller. Yeah. Ed's not a yeller. I'll say that. I'm more of the yeller. Ed's more of because they listen when I yell, right? Come on. How are they going to learn if I don't yell?
Different ways of communicating.
No, but Ed's.
I'm a yeller.
Yeah, so am I. Okay, good. But anyway, he'll go through just so the other coaches. It is nice to have other coaches on the staff, thank God. But yeah, no, the dynamic with Max and Dylan is funny, and Ed and Dylan is funny, and then Ed and Max, there's a lot. Like sometimes I'm sort of the intermediary. I'll get a call from, or Ed will come home and vent about something like, Max isn't doing it the way I showed him, and they're not doing this, and I'm doing an outside zone, and he's doing inside, whatever it is. And then Max will call me like a couple hours later. He's like, I'm just trying to get this through to Dad. Like, I just think he's old school and he's not doing it like this. And he's like, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you guys. Just I try to, talk each of them, like calm each of them down. And then usually once they get a good night's sleep and they go back in the office and discuss it the next day, sometimes they're even arguing about the same thing, which is really funny. It's just, they don't communicate perfectly, but they have worked it out. It's actually been, last year was better than I thought it was going to be. I thought there'd be way more fights, way more disagreements. I mean, definitely issues, but I don't think it was more abnormal than another coaching staff. I'll be honest. Actually, I don't know, but
they're all dysfunctional.
Right.
The
coaching staffs are God bless coaches' wives, all coaches' wives. That's all I can say. They are the strongest women I know. They're at home raising families while their husband's raising another family. That's, it's insane.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. That is the best way I've ever heard it put.
Because what it's like. Ed feels responsible for every kid on that team.
Of course.
That was happening too. Then he'd come home and tell me stories about these kids, like good, bad, everything. And I'm like, I would, like, my heart bleeds for some of the kids, or, you feel so horrible for, and I had to say, stop, because I physically can't handle this anymore. Because, he feels responsible for every kid on his team. He brought them in, he's given them scholarships. He wants them to succeed and thrive. And, and it's one thing in today's day and age that we never had, I don't think you even had, is they work on mental health a lot more. Which I think is actually an incredible thing. Like, this generation, as dysfunctional as it is with the social media, the one good thing that's come out of it is addressing mental health. And I think that's a really good thing, because I think a lot, like, I remember Ed going through, and you probably too, going through the NFL, and there was like guys that would come in that were the most amazing players on the planet. They were so good. Ed's like, I'm going to be cut. These guys are so good, but they never made it for whatever reason. And I do truly believe, after watching him coach college and in a little bit in high school and Little League, that there's other factors involved that are holding these guys back. It's almost like a fear of success. They don't want to succeed for whatever reason. No, there's like a weight holding them down. And I think with addressing mental illness, some people can get that off their back and talk about it and fix the issues, or try to, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that have gone on in people's lives that you don't realize, in everyone's lives. Everyone has crap. And it's that's those parents and those families where everything's so perfect and in line and neat. It's like, is it really? I mean, those I think are the most dysfunctional families and parents in the world.
My experience.
Yeah. Those are the ones that are.
Well, I'll tell you, that's not my experience.
No, yeah, same. We all have crap. So
we've messed up. We've messed up a lot more than I think we've gotten right. But
yeah, so we
just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But to hear you talk about Ed, the fact that Ed does care so much about those kids is why he's going to do a great job.
No, I hope so.
The coaches who care carry this incredible burden.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's overwhelming, and you feel this incredible responsibility and burden, but as challenging as that makes it, is what makes that person's impact on the group so special.
Oh, well, that's
in my opinion.
Okay. Can you tell me that mid-season this year?
Call me in November and we'll talk.
Okay. I will be calling you. All right. Crying.
So one of the last things, and I want to end because I think this is super special. So I'm reading one of your posts on Instagram from, this was a couple years ago, because I was playing with Christian, and it says 3 states, 3 games, 3 days, 1 missed flight, 1 5-hour delay, no sleep. Totally worth it. I think through all of this that we're talking about, and raising 4 boys, and being the wife of an NFL player who turns into a coach, and parenting, and the struggles that come with youth sports, and the ups and the downs, like, to me, the picture of you guys, all 4 boys, you and Ed together, you're at Panther Stadium, so you watch Christian, you got to go up and see Dylan, you got to go see Luke, and I believe, was it because Max was already done playing, right?
Where was Max at the time? I forget. Yeah, I know we went to Nebraska, then watched that game.
You went to Nebraska?
And then we went to Michigan.
You went to Nebraska.
Michigan.
Yeah, so it was
Panthers.
Dylan, Luke, and Christian. Yeah.
And Max was with us, yeah.
Yeah, he's in the picture. So just, like, to me, those are the moments that make it all worth it, right? The ups and the downs, so just, like, describe what those days are like when you put on the TV and you watch your kid play, or when you go to Rice this fall and watch Luke play, or you go to Northern Colorado and watch your boys coach and play. Like, that's what, like, those are the moments as a mom that's just got to make you say, these past crazy 20 years, all led to this.
Yeah. No, I think looking back, even on Ed's career too, I when you're in it, you don't appreciate it as much, which is so sad. So I'm trying moving forward to appreciate the good that comes out of it. Like watching Christian have a first down even. I mean, it's just like, oh, you well up. I'm just excited. You feel so much pride because you know how much work they've put into it. This is their dream. Watching, Luke switch positions this year. He's a receiver and he's so much happier. Oh my gosh, he's so excited. And I watched him out in his spring game and he just thrived and he came off like just the happiest kid. Those are the moments that makes it all worth it because I see the struggle. I see how hard each of them work at their own craft. And then if they have any success at all, it is very fulfilling and very rewarding. And and like I said, I am trying to appreciate it a little bit more than I used to, as opposed to just, living through it and forgetting it. And okay, next. It's always the next game, always the next this. Yeah. So trying to savor it a little bit. Like we always say, we started doing this like after a Panther game that night. We're like, okay, let's enjoy this one. We're not talking about next week. We're not talking about Monday. Let's try to savor this if there's a win. We try to appreciate it and just savor it and really enjoy it because, wins are few and far between and success is, and that sport is playing against the best in the world and it's difficult. So if you have any form of success, we do now try to sit back and be like, wow, that was awesome. And that was incredible and just enjoy it. And the next day we'll worry about the next game. So trying to do that more.
I think that's a great approach. I need to adopt that.
Yeah. It's hard though. It's hard. We never did it that way. You're always like, okay, that was a great win.
You're always on to the next
week
thing.
You play this team. So yeah, it's always next. Thank you, next.
That's always how I've been wired. Well, I obviously know Christian very well. We've gotten
What do you
close,
think of him?
Is he
what do you think of him for real? Come on. Is he kind of a dork? He tries to be all cool, but he's really a nerd inside. Come on.
I couldn't love Christian McCaffrey
Wait,
more.
He loves you. He went to one of your games and watched you coach. He was so excited. He got on the phone with me and Ed right after and was like, oh my gosh, it brought back so many memories. It reminded me of my youth watching dad coach. It was awesome. It was so fun. So he loved it.
Well, let me tell you something about Christian. From the first time I met him at Ron Rivera's bowling event. Mm-hmm. It was like 2 days after he got drafted.
I was there. I was at that.
And he sat down. You were there. I met you. I met Christian. He sat down next to me and began asking me how we run our blitz protections and how we do blitz pickup and how we identify. And I went home that night and I was like, this kid's special. Like, obviously we all watched him in Stanford and we watched him, should have won the Heisman. We all knew what he was. We knew when we drafted him, we're like, this kid is different. When I had a chance to be around him from the day I met him as a rookie till we played 3 years together. I don't know if I've ever been around a guy who had that work ethic, that commitment to his craft, but then also was like the most fun guy to be around. And he was the most fun guy to sit in the locker room with. And he was the most fun guy to
take a hot tub with.
Lunch and hang. Yeah, to take a hot tub and sing Adele. Like he was those guys. Like if you could sign up to have guys like him to be your teammate, you would pick 100 of them, right? Like, so whatever you guys did, I don't know Dylan, Luke, or Max as well, obviously, but like just knowing Christian, like hearing the way you and Ed raised the boys and the lessons, like I saw it firsthand as his teammate and now just as a buddy of his and who hangs with him and whatnot. So whatever you guys did, I know you joked like, oh, we did stuff wrong. You did a lot right because he is as impressive a guy I've been around. And I was around, for 15 years in the NFL, just hardworking, his attitude. He was fun. He was lighthearted. He never took himself too serious. He wasn't sensitive. You could bust his chops. And he was just the epitome of a great dude. So whatever you guys did, it worked.
Well, you're nice. Thank you. That's very kind. I did something right. Yay.
Well, I'll tell you another thing you did right. You were awesome. Like just hearing you kind of reflect back on your stories. I know that we are going to hear your voice a lot more now. I know you are in the works with a podcast from the mom perspective and kind of sharing very similar stories that we're chatting with here. And I would just love you to give our viewers like a little taste of what to expect when that pod goes live here, which my understanding is it's going to be here soon.
Yes, very soon. We don't have an exact launch date, but stay tuned. I will let you know. And you will plug it.
Tell us about it. Tell us what it's going to be about.
Yeah, it's a podcast called Your Mom. And I'm doing it with Ashley Adamson.
Which is a great name.
Isn't that a fun name? I know. We've all of a sudden, we had a different name and we muled through all these and we're like, oh, no, Your Mom, game on. So
Your Mom.
Your Mom.
That's so good.
Your Mom. It's really fun. And we have all my co-host, Ashley Adamson, is the Pac-12 reporter. She's been the Pac-12 reporter since the inception of the Pac-12. And she's incredible. And she's so awesome. And she's a mom herself now to 2 young kids, the cutest kids ever. They're way younger. So she just thought it'd be really fun to interview moms of kids of people that have excelled, not only in sports, in technology. And, like we asked each other at the beginning, who's your ultimate interview? And I was like, I want to interview Taylor Swift's mom. I love Taylor Swift.
There you go.
And, but she, so that's what we want to do is just pick their brain. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? If you had to go back, what would you do? But obviously there's something about these people that have excelled, and how is it nature, nurture? How does the families play a part? And we've already have a bunch of great interviews, in the vault right now. And we have a couple upcoming too. That's going to be really, really fun. So, stay tuned.
Awesome.
It's going to be fun.
Well, moms make the world go round. I know my mom did. She navigated a high school football coach as a husband who was obsessed with what he did. And she raised 3 boys who then went on to play college football and deal with the ups and downs of that. And 2 of them played quarterback, which comes with a whole other set, as you know firsthand.
I've learned.
You had two quarterbacks yourself.
That and one switch position. So that's got to tell you something.
So you only got one quarterback left.
Yeah.
I always tell my son Tate is going to play his first tackle football season this year. And he's like, Dad, I want to play quarterback. I'm like, do you?
Yeah.
I was like, I could teach you to run the best routes. Like, you might not be as fast, but like, just go be Christian. Like, go be like,
it's
just
a
go.
lot easier.
You're not
take ball, run.
I don't know. Like,
Seems.
It sounds easy, but like, I don't know. There's something about quarterback. I've been 2 brothers that go through it. It's just a different world.
Yeah.
It's a different path.
It is. And that's a mindset.
Always there to pick
mindset.
up the pieces.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Does Kara like it? Does Kara like sports?
She does. She's gotten into it. She really embraces watching her kids do things if they love doing it.
Okay, good.
So if she's watching one of her kids play in a game and they're not into it, or she feels like they're not giving their attitude, she has no patience for it.
Okay, yeah. Good.
But if the kids are into it and they're competing and they're working, she can sit at the ball fields for 12 hours, no complaints.
Yeah.
She loves it.
That's good.
Her rule, though, is, and I'm all for it, her rule is we will sacrifice for as long as you put the work in to make it worth our sacrifice.
Right.
Because the second this becomes us giving up all of our time and energy and resources to watch you half-ass it, we're done.
Yep.
And that's her rule.
That's great. That's awesome. That's a fantastic rule. I love it.
The moms make the world go, and they pick up and they're there to pick up all the pieces when all the kids
we
call
get
to
a lot of the crap
on
our shoulders. We do. So, yep.
Always. Well, Lisa, I can't thank you enough for just reflecting and being open and honest. And I just think so many of the lessons that your family went through is going to resonate. I know it resonated with me firsthand, both growing up and now as a parent. And I know so many of our viewers are going to find so much to that they can relate to, kind of hearing your stories and the laughs and the fun and whatnot. But thank you so much for joining us here on You Think, and I look forward to your mom. And we'll make sure we have you back on and we can talk more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. Keep it up.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.